Jack Birmingham,
Here.
Steve Hintz, Jason Lasky,
Here.
Archie Stam, Steve Cummings.
Here. We have one item for consent, which is the minutes from October 1, November 12, and November 12 closed session of 2018.
I'll move the approval of those minutes.
I'll second.
Discussion. Would you please take the roll?
It's just a voice vote.
Oh, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. New business, we have one public hearing, which is a spot blight designation for 1024 Windsor Street. The public here is open. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak to this? Bring it back to the board. Any discussion? Okay, declare the public hearing closed. I'll now I need a motion and a second.
Move to adopt resolution 18-17.
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
Just usually read 3 times.
Any discussion?
Any
Would you-
uniquenesses, Alan?
Uniquenesses, it's just deferred maintenance on the property for many, many years.
Would you please take the roll?
Lasky,
Aye.
Belter,
Aye.
Birmingham,
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Motion carried 4-0.
First, we have resolution 18-17, which is approve spot blight designation, accept donation of property at 1024 Windsor Street.
Did we just vote on this?
Did-
18.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that corrects
I'm
you.
sorry. It sounded familiar.
I'll just be quiet.
It was climbing 4 flights of stairs. A little blood flow in the wrong direction. Resolution 18-18, approve terminating assignment of lease and rents between U.S. Bank and the Redevelopment Authority related to the Marion Road, Pearl Avenue redevelopment area lease revenue bonds. Now I'd like a motion and a second.
I'll move approval of 18-18.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
What if I signed that original lease? I might have been president then.
Back in 2006?
Although market president wasn't necessarily signing authority for conveying real estate for U.S. Bank at the time. So maybe not.
It was the Milwaukee office.
Yeah, they did all the land stuff.
Yeah.
Is there any further discussion? Would you please take the roll?
Lasky,
Aye.
Belter,
Aye.
Birmingham,
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Motion carried 4-0.
Next, we have Resolution 18-19, approve terminating lease agreement between City of Oshkosh and Redevelopment Authority pertaining to Marion Road, Pearl Avenue redevelopment area lease revenue bonds.
I'll move approval of 18-19.
A second? I need a second.
Oh, I thought you said, yeah, I'll second.
That's what I was staring at you. Discussion.
I didn't read through the whole package just because the bonds are paid off.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, U.S. Bank wouldn't even tell us about these things. They just do them, so.
If there are no further questions or discussion, would you please take the roll?
Lasky,
Aye.
Belter,
Aye.
Birmingham,
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Motion carried 4-0.
I will now turn it over to Mr. Davis for the Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item on my report would be the Oshkosh Arena update. And we have in attendance today City Attorney Lawrenson, who I'm hoping can give us the latest and greatest regarding the developments with Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources on this particular property. If you recall, we were to the point where we had a closure letter from DNR, and we were expecting the VPLE, that's the Voluntary Party Liability Exemption. And we were days away from receiving that back in August, and since then, DNR has changed the VPLE program and what they want to cover and not cover under the VPLE program. And with that introduction, maybe Ms.
we go.
Lawrenson can give us a little more detail.
We've met with DNR and spoken with them on the phone on a number of occasions. They've changed the VPLE program, and essentially what they are going to offer from here forward is a VPLE just for those contaminants that you tested for and remediated with your with your application and with the phase 1 and phase 2 and processing through. So they have not gotten the completed certificate drafts for us yet available. There are a couple of other sites that are more, I think the technical legal term they used was hair on fire than ours at this point. So they are working on getting those drafts out. We're in line after that to get our drafts. So they're working on it. We've also had some discussion via email with the developer, and they are waiting to see those drafts to analyze those as well. So that's kind of where we stand with that process. On a side note, I did actually speak at a symposium related to PFAS and had some conversations with the DNR people related to redevelopment just in general and how they're dealing with it. And they were very encouraging. They related it to some of the other things. When PCBs first hit the site, they weren't sure how to deal with them. There was that little bit of time where everybody's kind of in balance. Same thing with lead paint, same thing with asbestos, and they feel like they're in that kind of a little bit of chaos period, but they're getting their feet under them. They've already learned a lot that is going to allow them to take some steps forward in the future. So while you might not want to be the first ones out of the chute, and unfortunately we were in this case, I think that as things kind of settle down, they're getting a better understanding of it, and it'll be easier to work through, and everybody will be able to understand the processes a little better in the future. So.
And going into it with that, knowing
Well,
that
and
going
knowing,
into it will
yeah.
be a lot better for everybody.
Exactly. So.
If the substances of concern that are being tested for are above benchmark but below action limit, will they allow it to stay on site as is?
See, that's part of the issue right now with this particular class of contaminants. They don't have an action level established for, well, they have a soil level but not a groundwater level, and that's what they want you to test for. And then they, at this point, are saying, well, if you test, we'll get the results, and then we'll decide from there if you need to do more and what you need to do. There's just a lot of uncertainty right at this point. And I think as they work through a few projects, that's going to get better, but it's being the first one that gives you some hesitation. So.
But it does sound like they're not going for that extra requirement. They're just looking at what we know already exists on the property
Right
based
now,
on the
yeah.
analysis we've already had. So
Yeah.
that's the intent, was that during the construction activities, those were remediated to the extent necessary.
Correct. Everything that we identified was remediated. There are.
Without sampling confirmation or with sampling confirmation?
Do you recall, how much we sampled as we took out of the arena property?
Everything would have been sampled as needed.
And I think I'm recalling correctly that there are no continuing monitoring obligations on this site that I recall.
Perfect, okay,
So-
well, that's great.
So they don't monitor that PFAS? They don't
That was not, it was
never-
not.
No, it wasn't the
that's never
original.
been
Sorry.
monitored.
But they could in the future check groundwater?
Yeah.
And that's what they actually volunteered to do at the beginning, was to allow DNR to go on the property and start taking samples. But it takes a special protocol and a special lab out of California, and we were talking tens of thousands of dollars and parts per trillion.
And a lot of uncertainty
And
as to what
months.
happens if.
Yes.
Right.
And then we also took a look at, there are wells in the general area, they are not potable water wells. So everything in the area of this site is all on city water. So
So from my bank's perspective, if I was the bank, I get a clean site relative to what was identified a
correct.
few years ago, the phase 1 and 2.
Yep.
But do I have a complete closure letter from the DNR to have a clean site to remove me from any liability that
They
my
will
mortgage is taking?
never be getting those out
Anymore.
Well,
anymore.
that-
The program has changed.
Well, but the bank.
Be good for today.
As they
Yeah.
find
Tell you
something
about
new.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
The bank has to agree that to fund, is my
Yes.
point.
Yeah.
When will we know that?
When, the status of the financing?
Mhm.
That, we have been told they're working on it, and if you recall, I think it was in October, that we did the third amendment to the development agreement. They have been working on finalizing that financing. There was a sunset date on that of December 31st. They've been reminded of that, and I was told last week that we should be getting paperwork this week. They are also aware that with the holidays, a number of us, of city staff are out the last week of this month. So we have been told that they plan to get something to us within the next day or so here, so.
If it's
I have
January-
not received it yet. I actually checked my email.
Mhm.
I came from another meeting, but I quick checked my email before I ran in here, and I did not receive it via email. Whether something was dropped off at the office, I'm not sure, but
If it goes into January, does that impact anything?
they would lose the automatic consent. It would have to go back to council
And RDA.
and RDA, so.
So we might have a special meeting in January if something like that would happen. If we could get a quorum.
Although at this point, we have no request for extension,
Okay.
so.
Refresh my memory, at a recent meeting, did we discuss what this material was used for? In what industries and?
PFAS?
The PFAS.
I know,
It-
Jack, you said it's affecting.
Showed up in firefighting foam. Yeah.
Yes, firefighting, but it's Teflon, it's something that makes, it works with adhesive. So it's, yeah, waterproofing of boots and leather materials, Scotch Guard kinds of things. It does show up in some paints and varnishes, although given the nature of Buckstaff's business, it is a costly additive to put in there. I would be surprised if they, knowing the type of stuff they did, that they would have paid that extra, but.
That was all interior woodwork that
Right.
they provided, and the waterproofing would typically be an exterior application, so.
One would think so.
Okay.
But they don't know for sure, but stains and varnishes were on the list.
Correct.
That's how we got it listed. Sure. Buckstaff.
Well, we need that closure letter to transfer title.
Correct.
We could also do a long-term lease.
We actually have a
I
long-term
mean,
lease, yeah.
We don't have to transfer the title to the real estate. We do a 99-year lease.
That's the way it would currently basically
So I
operate.
believe it's a 50-year right
Yeah.
now.
Oh, okay.
Yep, yep.
But selfishly, I don't want the RDA to own that property for the next 50 years, and I'd just soon
No, I know.
have the property
And
be
I-
on the tax roll.
The conversations I've had with the developer, they would like to close on it. They're anxious to close as well. So, and they understand that this is, the VPLE as it's going to be issued now, so. We're just waiting to actually get the language and both review it.
From DNR.
Correct.
Yep.
Anybody else? All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Off to another meeting. All right, Healthy Neighborhood Initiative. Wanted to give you guys update on Eastman and Monroe properties. They'll both be demolished at this point. Habitat has expressed interest in the Eastman property since it has a detached garage and it's still a good location. We're looking at striking some kind of agreement with Habitat for that property, and that'll be on a future agenda, assuming we meet that Habitat and RDA's interests there. GoHNI and Habitat are also working on the Rock the Block activities for Sacred Heart. If you recall, that was the first neighborhood where we were creating the Rock the Block program here in Oshkosh. We're looking at doing additional in 19 and 20. The Rock the Block in Sacred Heart was chosen by Habitat for Humanity, but they're working very closely with GoHNI And city staff is working on that for potential CDBG and healthy neighborhoods, as well as great neighborhoods capital improvement programs in all 5 neighborhoods. And let's see. Since Ms. Reuter is here, I know, Ms. Reuter, would you have anything you want to chime in for the healthy neighborhoods part right now?
I really don't have a report, but I just
Right.
want to make an introduction. I do have my business cards. With GoH&I, we are anxious to work with the RDA. So one of our business lines is that real estate development, and taking a property in a neighborhood, we know what can happen with the ripple effect when we come in and make those improvements to that property. Taking the worst property on the block and making it the best is a model that we do envision. We recognize that would take a community investment on our part. There wouldn't be the flippers out there per se that would be willing to make that type of commitment. We might not get everything as far as the dollar invested back on those properties, but that community investment truly is what we are aiming to do as we develop our neighborhoods here in Oshkosh. So Darlene and I are in regular conversations as far as properties that might come up. We have a real estate development investment guideline and policy that our committee works through to assess whether those properties are the ones that are going to make that type of gain for our organization as well as the community. So we haven't found the right one yet, but eager to and able to make some of those decisions hopefully in the near future. So, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the work you do.
I'm going to jump ahead to future agenda items, but I think it'd be good if we plan next year a joint meeting between the RDA and people from GoH&I to kind of, we've discussed, we pretty much run out of blighted factories to tear down. Let's start focusing on the blighted neighborhoods and not a house here, a house there, but a neighborhood. There are certainly some that need some TLC, and that I think working together we can start to upgrading some of the neglected parts of the city.
Okay, let's see. The Jefferson Street property, that option expired, and I'm thinking that we'd probably want to issue that again this spring. I wanted to get any RDA feedback on the Jefferson Street property. Is the timing right?
Well, right now we own it, we're just sitting on it.
Maintaining it. Mhm.
Is,
Are there structures on there?
is there any
No.
benefit to looking to purchase some of the Main Street side that backs up to it, to add to create a larger parcel?
Excellent question, because if you recall, Chet mentioned that he was going to be exploring that as part of his option.
And there's a property for sale today.
Yes.
The old meat market.
Yes. So I was just wanted to bring that up because we did discuss that, and
Well, staff has talked about that. I don't have the specifics in front of me, but we could probably schedule that for January 16th to review that in greater detail.
great.
It also brings up the thought about the east side of Jefferson. The properties there are in need of some TLC. Could we, as we talk neighborhoods, would that be a project we own part of the street? Would it make sense to jump across the street?
Both sides.
Both sides.
Mhm. We'll add that to the January 16th agenda. We can take a look at what the conditions and values are on those properties.
And one thing, I have talked to an architect about, a lot of these properties are very narrow but deep. And my assumption is, this predates me, that these very deep properties where people still had, had gardens, probably livestock, that can we design homes that would fit into a narrow, deep lot? Maybe it means a garage goes in back of the property type of thing. So I think it's kind of a challenge. How would we design something for a 40 or 50-foot lot within the city? Keep it compatible with the rest of the neighborhood and that type of thing. So it'd be kind of nice if we could lead the way in that too.
Absolutely. Let's see, a lot of updates on the South Shore. Advanced military packaging is in the 43D7th through July 27th, and then a month-to-month extension after that. There's a meeting of the Sawdust District Planning Committee tomorrow afternoon. Let's see.
We still don't have an RFP for that, for 43 East 7th?
We sent one out and we received no proposals.
Okay. And was there any comments, was there anybody
Yes.
interested but
Yes,
didn't
lots of
fulfill
people
it?
were interested, but with the unknown plans for the Pioneer Island, or the
Oh.
Decade Property Strip,
Got
and
it.
the CN Pioneer Drive problem, too many people were concerned about their access to a river walk and what's going to happen with all that space between them and the river.
Dennis, thank you.
Yep.
Is there an update on the CN Pioneer Drive discussion, or not really?
Yes, after 2 or 3 months of not responding to voicemails or emails, CN did respond last week and asked some follow-up questions. So I'm cautiously optimistic. Maybe things are done with construction, and I was pleading with them that I'd have to start doing the permitting later this year in 2019, and time is getting short to try to actually get a permit from DNR and or Corps of Engineers or anybody else that we're gonna need for doing the Riverwalk in 2020.
Are they interested in naming it?
They're interested in retaining it.
I want them to give it to us, and then we'll just name it the CN or the CN River Walk portion in honor of them.
And out of the spur of the liberty.
So far, no luck.
Which reminds me of something. We're supposed to do some historical signs
Yes,
for them on both.
exactly.
Give us the money.
Yes, we still have that money. In fact,
But we
that was
haven't
part of my explanation is that we need this planned out so we can actually put the historic plaques out.
Okay. Kind of forgotten about that.
The 1899 portal that we
Yep.
had disassembled and moved over to the site as well, that we want to incorporate into the Riverwalk. So, but the historic people are not necessarily the people who deal with the real estate piece. In fact, the historic guy retired last year, so we don't have that guy to help carry the project forward within CNN. CNN.
Think of
Try
the
Fox.
TV.
Yeah. Let's see, Morgan District, I think the lights and bollards have been installed.
Most of them have been installed.
Last time I looked,
Yeah.
do they actually go on when you flip the switch?
I don't think they have it hooked up yet.
Okay, but really close.
But they should by the end of this week, we're hoping.
Very good.
Are those able to be hooked up into the bridges
Hooked up into the.
for lighting control?
No, they come off a
It
different
was a little
circuit.
late, I thought about that a
Yes.
couple years ago. Darn it.
Aren't they
It's a
solar?
nice idea.
No, they're not solar.
They're solar? Okay.
They have to be fed from either direction.
In Wisconsin.
Well, Bridgeville. Wywash is solar.
We're trying to find good applications for solar.
This is Wisconsin. It's tough.
Yep. Pioneer Island, we still have been working with Mr. Dumke on cleaning up the island and trying to see a project happen there. We're expecting the island to be cleaned up later in 2019, based on what Mr. Dumke's represented to us, but no specific plans for redevelopment yet. Let's see, the capital improvement program still contains the 412, or a total of $824,000 for remediation on the parcels on east and west sides of Main Street. They're between 8th and 9th, or 7th, 8th, and 9th.
It doesn't look so good when you drive by.
Which
The
part?
south part of Louis and the.
No, that's a different fund. We got
Okay,
money for
that's
that
right.
in the CIP
The
as
boards
well.
just kind of hanging there, and
Yeah.
a tarp and
City Council also approved the demolition funding as well, so that should be coming down, although when I was asking Ms. Brandt about that, she reminded me that we have to hire an engineer to figure out how you can tear that down without bringing Lewis's walls down as well. So, we'll be doing an RFQ for an engineer or architect to, figure that out and help us demolish those structures in 2019. We-
Segue.
We talked a little bit about the 9th Avenue extension. That would have to be done simultaneously with the Riverwalk. And I need to figure out how I get the Pioneer to dedicate some right-of-way and hook it back up to the CN rail crossing. And the Boatworks property, the option expired. At this point in time, nobody else has really been asking any questions about that one. But perhaps things will change depending on how the Morgan District proceeds later this next year. Let's see, Marion and Pearl redevelopment area. Annex completed their construction on the site, including the part that we swapped with them, so for the water tower, so that worked out in the long run. A lot of work to reach that point, so thank you to the grants coordinator and city attorney's office for making sure that happened. Parcel J, that's the one that merge, we granted the option to from the Iowa Development Group. And I expect we'll have those details worked out on the option in the very short term. Is there anything we need to bring to the RDA?
No.
Okay.
We're working on an access agreement so that they can do their due diligence.
And drill holes and excavate things as they see fit.
Right.
And restore and maintain in the
Correct.
meantime.
Correct.
Last but not least, Jeff Fulbright's option on parcel H, which is up there at Pearl and Jackson intersection, that expires at the end of this month. We haven't received anything since our last meeting with them. And then the other good news is that we have CIP funds to demolish the AccuCom building and Reps Bar there at the corner of Sawyer and Oshkosh Ave. So, assuming we get through the asbestos investigation with Reps Bar, we'll hopefully take both those buildings down at the same time later this year, or later in 2019.
After the
wish it
first
would-
of the year,
Yeah.
we'll start working on all.
And then as a reminder, we are expecting about $800,000 in grant funds from the DNR for the Lakeshore Trail that's going to connect from I-41 over to Rainbow Memorial Park. And then we got about another $250,000 from DOT to extend the trail through Rainbow Park over to this intersection of Sawyer and Oshkosh Ave in 2021. So my plan is still in 2019 to build the Oshkosh Corp area Lakeshore Trail. And 2020 would be back to Pioneer. And then 21 would be through Rainbow Memorial Park. And I'm not sure how much farther I can go until I get CN and Pioneer Island figured out.
Do you have to take it east of Oshkosh Corp between the road and the riverfront, or can you use the road for?
That's an excellent question. We are looking at having the engineers figure out if they can just mill off and repave over the existing pavement or base that they have there.
That's right.
So in fact, we're hoping we can mill that off and use it for constructing the trail over to the interstate highway as well, so.
Because Corp won't use it. They'll-
Correct.
They're only coming in this way,
Yep.
so we have this free blacktop almost.
Yes, and we have a lot of free blacktop at the parking lot as well.
Right, right.
So we're looking at reusing that for the Riverwalk as well.
So the two phases there, that goes, obviously from 41 kind of to the parking lot to the road you're talking about. Where does that end then? What's the cutoff between that and Rainbow?
Panoqua
And Panoqua?
Street.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so you'd get to Panoqua, then you take the left, just do the normal
Mm-hmm.
roads to get back to the 21
Gotcha.
bridge, or Oshkosh Ave Bridge.
Okay.
Ridden it many times. so.
Mhm.
But hopefully by the end of 21 then, you'd continue there at Panoqua through Rainbow Park over to Oshkosh Ave
Mhm.
and Sawyer.
Mhm.
And then you can go across the bridge, I suppose. Or turn around and head back the other way.
Lots of options.
Yeah.
And that bridge is spooky when the cars are coming at you at 35 miles an hour and you're on that 12-foot or 12-inch high sidewalk, and some other bike is coming, and you hope the drawbridge isn't going up, and it's a fun part of the ride.
Well, you want your heart beating a little more, don't you?
Of course.
How are applications coming?
I beg your pardon?
How are applications coming for a new member?
I think we've had an application or two.
Yeah.
Still accepting?
Yes,
Yeah.
I believe so.
Great.
I've talked to a couple of people and we're just waiting. Give you a chance, Jack, to talk to anybody.
I have someone in mind.
Okay.
Yep.
Because
Is
if,
that application just on?
Online.
our
Online.
website?
Under
Probably
the city
the city.
managers
Okay.
or in council.
Might
one of
under
the two.
boards and commissions
Boards and
even.
commissions, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, boards and commissions.
I'm meeting with Tom from the Oshkosh Herald tomorrow, wanting to talk about the need for people for boards, all the boards and commissions. And it's a great opportunity to serve the city, but it's hard to find people that have the time. But
Get it all up, we always have a few vacancies and we need a bench for
Yeah.
something like that.
How is it typically marketed, beside word of mouth?
a lot of it's word of mouth, talking to people, I do a lot of speaking, so I was going to close with, there's boards and commissions that you would like to serve on. If you like history, there's landmarks. If you like finance, there's long-range finance, there's planning, there's this group, bike and ped, arts and beautification. So there's a lot of different boards and commissions depending on your area of interest. But again, it's just the time commitment for people. And then we've done public service announcements with all the chairs. Most of the chairs in different boards and commissions explain what that board does. I mean, what does planning do? So we're trying to answer that question for people. Here's what we do in the planning commission. And the closest we could get someone now on this, with this group would be the first meeting in January.
Mhm.
'Cause
So they could be on board for the January 16th meeting.
Right. We get the application, they go to me, I look at them. I usually talk to the person that chairs that board or commission, plus the staff person that's on there, and say, what do you think of this? We do a little bit of checking, and so then it goes to council for final. I don't have the final approval. I recommend to council, the council does the final vote.
Do you vote or do you abstain from that?
No, I vote.
Well, were you hoping to have GoHNI's board at the January 16th meeting?
I would think it would be nice if we don't have a whole lot on the agenda.
Okay. Are we anticipating much on the agenda, Ms. Brandt, Ms. Flanagan?
Potentially, we have another spotlight.
Okay,
Okay.
so that could be
I'll know
another,
later today.
It took 5 minutes.
another 5 or 10 minutes of that. Very good.
That's all I have.
Is that a residential property?
Pardon?
Yes,
Residential, that might be good for them to be,
yep.
In one of the hoods, in one of the neighborhoods.
okay, hearing how we go through this process.
I love lighting.
Yes.
If that's it, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
A second.
Second?
All in favor? Signify by
Thank you.
saying aye.
Aye.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. We'll see you all
Tom, are you
next
switching
year.
on January